What it do? What it do is the word up with Elijah. And we're going to be talking about the Good Samaritan and just who our neighbor is today. And I think it's gonna be pretty cool. But we gotta talk about something because I don't know why I said like this. This feels discomfortable, but we're gonna talk. So I was at the gym today this morning, like just like almost a full hour ago, and I'm just working out, working out everything usual. And my friend texts me on Instagram. But me and this guy, we used to work together, but we don't ever really text each other. We went to the gym together, but he texted me. And on the lock screen, where you just like hold it so you can see the um like what they send or text you. So I did that. I hold on to it, and then it said post post by like Kendrick Lamar. I'm like, interesting. Like Kendrick Lamar like never posts. I don't even follow Kendrick Lamar. I'm a big fan of Kendrick Lamar. And I clicked on it. And it was like this black glove, and started playing music. I was like, this man Kendrick just dropped a whole back to back on Drake. Kendrick said some stuff, but got nothing to say. But I'm gonna give y'all the verse of the day. And this verse comes from Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. And every time I read this, I always get fire in my bones. God, this scripture just shows how powerful God is, how awesome God is, and the God that we serve. It said, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. That I think why it's such a good scripture is because despite everything that's going like that happened to him or what he was going through, how people would spit on him and mock his name and blaspheme him, the joy that he had thinking about it. He endured it all, despising the shame because he could have like, hey, I could hit 12 legions on y'all right now if I really wanted to. But no, it's the joy that he had. That's awesome. It's the joy that he had. So, um, oh yeah. So the story about the Good Samaritan, right, takes place in Luke chapter 10. And there's like three things that you can learn. I believe like all of us, I'm trying to apply better this in my life as well about kindness and just being a good neighbor, who exactly our neighbor is. And I don't even know how long this video is gonna run because even during like my entire studies, there's like other things I found in here that I was like, it's crazy. But that was probably pretty loud. But yeah. And we have to understand that a lot of times when Jesus he tells a story of the Good Samaritan. And most of the time when Jesus would tell a parable, um, for those new to Christ, story is like the parable go together basically. And there was a message that he was always trying to convey to the audience. He wasn't just telling the parable just to tell them, There will always also be a conversation that would happen or event that was taking place in the moment that would lead Jesus into the parable. And for this one particularly, there was a religious expert that wanted to test Jesus, and he would ask Jesus, Rabbi, how do I inherit eternal life? And I'm pretty sure he was like trying to be sarcastic, like he was like, well, what does the law of Moses say? For sure, like you read it, like bro, like you're a religious expert and you don't know. And he would say, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You would say, right, it's awesome. Like continue to do those, and you will live. Like that's cool, awesome. The man wanted to justify his action, so he asked Jesus, but who exactly like is my neighbor? Because you're like me. I just want to love the people who love me, who are nice and kind to me. Then Jesus then go into the parable about the Good Samaritan. I'm just gonna read it off and everything. I'm just gonna read it. It says a Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead by the roadside. So this man basically just got jumped. He got hurt. These guys left him on the roadside, half dead. By chance, a priest came along, but when he saw the man lying there, he crossed the other side of the road and passed him by. So we see that there was a priest that saw the man, and maybe the priest wanted to help him, but he was probably like, "Since you're half dead, I don't want to touch you because if I become unclean." In the book of Leviticus, whole bunch of laws and stuff, you touch something dead, you become unclean. And he can't go into the temple. He has to do this whole sacrificing and all these other things. You can read all that about it in Leviticus. It's a lot. But we see in verse 32, it says a temple man, a temple assistant, walked over and looked at him lying there. But he also passed by on the other side. So we see two people that Jesus highlights that saw the man half dead and needing of help, but yet passed on by him. And a lot of times, some of the people who claim to be Christian that walk with Jesus sometimes do the least amount of trying to help people who are really in need. And that's true. And that could be myself sometimes as well. But it says, then a despised Samaritan. And if you didn't know this, Samaritan is basically the Jewish people would intermarry with all these foreign, like Assyrian nations, right? And these nations, other nations would basically, they worship different gods, had different cultures and everything. So they intermarried. And so basically, like, almost like Jewish nation, Syrian nation together, Samaritan. Watch how Jesus has the Samaritan bit the story of it. Because let me say you something. So the Jews hated the Samaritans like very very bad. And matter of fact, how they hated them so much. Let me just let me just show you this, right? I don't know how I'm gonna do this actually. Hold on, zoom in up for y'all. So right between this is Galilee, Samaria, and Judea, right? So Jewish people hated them so much. They were in Judea and they went to Galilee. You could easily just cross from Galilee through Samaria and you get there like in a day, right? The Jewish people hated them so much. They would literally pray that they wouldn't get to heaven, that they were so unclean and everything. That they would literally go from Galilee, go all the way over, cross like basically going over Samaria to Judea. That would take 2 to 3 days. A 1 day trip just to go through, take 2 to 3 days because they hate them so much, right? But then Jesus is basically it's like laughing back at the religious expert, telling them exactly the answer, whether he believed it or see it or not in that moment. But these are the three things that I believe that we can learn from. Was that um, verse 33? It says that and he saw the man. We see that he was a perceptive neighbor when he saw the man, basically able to evaluate condition and the situation that the man was in. It wasn't that like the guy not to like tell him like, hey man, like I need help. Like, can you come over here, help me right now because I'm struggling, right? But he felt compassion for him. He knew what to do in that moment. And exactly in that same way, isn't it very nice when you have a family or a friend that knows exactly what to do when you're having a bad day? They know what to say or do in the moment just to lift up your spirit. In that same way, can we have those type of eyes towards people that we don't know? Whether it's someone just across the street or our job spaces or whatever, like wherever we are, can we see people in that way in that very same moment? Second thing is that we see that he was a compassionate neighbor. And verse 33 says he felt compassion for him. He was willing to put himself in the other person's shoes and go, hey, like if I was in this situation, how would I want to be seen in this moment? Would I want to be treated and just loved and cared for? Right? And sometimes we can have a tendency to not feel compassion for them. Yeah, we have a tendency to blame them for the situation that they're in. But we can't blame people for the situation that they're in, you know? Because that could easily be us. It could easily be us. third and final thing is that he was a selfless neighbor. Say, going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. We see that he was willing to be inconvenienced in that day, in the moment. I'm pretty sure when the Samaritan like woke up this day, he didn't think that he was got to change his entire routine and the schedule just to help a man that was in need. But he was willing to be inconvenienced. In that same way, we can't see people as an inconvenience, you know? Help me not to see people the way that my flesh wants to see people, but God opened the eyes of my heart so I can see people the way that you see people. And we're not going to see people as an inconvenience just because we got our salvation or our deliverance, our freedom or our blessing, but we can see them in the potential that they could be instead. It's pretty crazy. Second thing is that he was willing to put time for the man, bandaging up his wounds with olive oil and wine and putting the man on his own donkey and taking it to the inn. We see that he was willing to put time. I believe that a lot of times, all of us have good intentions to help people. We want to be kind to people and help people that are in need and in desperation. But I think a lot of times when it comes down to it, it's just that we're not willing to put the time in for it. Invest that time, go out of our way or our schedules or our busyness just to help people. Yeah, that's crazy. I think that, man, that's really true. Sometimes I don't really feel like putting the time because I can be so focused on where I'm going. I can't stop to see the people who are there in the moment that really need help. I try to make people feel seen though. I know I can do better on that. It's crazy. Little confession. Okay. Third and final thing is say that he was willing to use his own resources. And verse 35 says, the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said. When I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Sometimes it's not the physical resources that we give people, like food and money. More importantly, that we're just using our hands and our feet and our mouth to make people feel seen in the moment. Because the current epidemic that's going around the world, and there's a lot of just health issues that need to be addressed. But the current one, the number one thing that a lot of people are suffering from today is loneliness. That a person could be in a room filled with so much people with joy or laughter or whatever it is, but yet still feel so alone in those moments. So the conversations that we do have with a random person on the street or maybe a coworker, it really does matter because that might be the only time they get to talk to somebody. And it might be undescribable. It might be like insignificant to us, but it becomes undescribable to them in that moment, you know? And we not be so tunnel vision with where we're heading, but we can open our eyes to see the eternity of what God's doing around us, people He's placing in our lives in these moments. I think it starts changing everything. Forgot that was the part I was gonna say. Um, yeah. Oh, that. Okay. Yeah, okay. So when I was going back, when he was willing to put in time. He was basically going the extra mile. I remember I was like reading this. I was like, he was going the extra mile. Then something dawned on me. The Holy Spirit. I was like, the extra mile. Like, where is that? Where does that like sound so familiar? I kept asking myself, like, where's that sound so familiar? And then Jesus. Where is it? Oh, right here, right here, right here. Ooh, that's crazy. Right here. Verse Matthew chapter 5. And literally, it's like, love your enemies. I would read this whole thing, but he was saying, like, give, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Going the extra mile for the people you don't know. And then it also says, you've heard that it says to love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. You may be the children of the Father in heaven. So because it says love your neighbor. It says the old command used to be love your neighbor and love God, right? Love God and love your neighbor. But the new commandment is the old commandment because it says because Jesus showed how to love your neighbor, take care of your neighbor. I know if I'm talking fast because I'm like, it's crazy. But the new commandment is to love your neighbor as God has loved them, basically, right? Wait, yeah. So yeah. Oh, well, you maybe sure. I don't even know. I don't even know. But it's to love your neighbor as God in the sense that God has loved them. But if you're like me, I want to pick my neighbor. You know, like I said again, I want to pick my neighbor. But when Jesus says that you love your neighbor as I have loved them, you go, Jesus, you mean to tell me I gotta pray for those who persecute me? I gotta bless those who curse me? I gotta love my enemies? And I gotta go the extra mile for them when they tell me to go 1 mile for them? You serious? And in those moments, that it's gonna be hard sometimes. It's gonna be hard. Will you just remind yourself of what God did for you, how He walked, and how He sees people? Help me, like I said, help me to see people not the way that my flesh wants to see people, but to see people the way that God sees people. 'Cause He has an eternity perspective. This is my ways are not your ways, and my thoughts are not your thoughts. So when we start praying that He starts renewing our mind and spirit in Romans, Romans say, I think it's like Romans 2:12, our heart starts changing from the inside out. He starts changing us from the inside out. Because that's the thing about, I'm all over the place. I'm about to talk about why Jesus was really on the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and something else. He was saying like you were whitewashed tombs. You look good on the outside, and the inside you're dead. But Jesus changes us from the inside out. So it's not when you have an addiction or a problem, it's not behavior modifications, heart transformation. It's got to be a change of heart for everything. So you don't just pick our neighbors. We're called to love all people. So that means people that don't look like me, people don't talk like me, people that don't live in the same neighborhood as me, people, everyone around the world, whether it's online, on video games. 'Cause I know how y'all guys be doing it. Uh, Girls be on the games too. I'm just saying, but y'all be. I used to be one of them, but I know what y'all be on the group chats, especially on the Call of Duty lobbies. I understand it, but we got to be kind, see all people, and I think it's very important we remind ourselves every day that it's not about us, too. It ain't about us. It's about Jesus. Because that might be just that one moment of just kindness can change everything. And there's a time in my life, I had a friend, me and my friend Dion. I didn't even say his name, but me and Dion were brothers, man. I love that dude. We were always friends. Real close. We were always close and tight. We always go to the neighborhood and just play basketball together. It's a cool thing. But I remember we were years ago, but after we graduated and doing like all the TikTok and everything on Instagram and stuff, and he had texted me and just checking up on each other. And he I just invited him to church and just being intentional to talk to him, being intentional because you just never know. So a couple of days after church, he had just text me how he sees me walking with God has motivated him to give his life to God and pursue Jesus. I'm like, dude, I was just inviting you to church to catch up and everything, but I failed to realize that what seemed insignificant to me became indescribable to him. It changed his life. So being intentional and being present to actually see people and talking to them and getting to know, like, I see you. I think that is the most important thing when walking with God. You know, being intentional to see people with kindness. That's so important. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't really got anything else to. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Stay blessed up. Good night.